a very warm welcome from my side to this virtual meeting. I'm very glad about the opportunity to present to you how we progressed with Bilder der Schweiz Online, Images of Switzerland, since our last meeting half a year ago, and also to welcome some new faces. My name is Santschi. I'm the coordinator of the project. And in addition, we have Olja Nikolaeva, Florian Kreutli as knowledge graph engineers. We have Sophie Gürmann as a research assistant, and she's also standing in for Michael Mathil today as from the part project 2. We have Thomas Hansley as the lead of part project 1, and of course, Tristan Weddingen as principal investigator. Furthermore, also Martin Bess is supporting us technically on sMapshot, about which I will talk in a moment. On this slide, you can see what I'll be talking about today. As we have some colleagues joining us for the first time, we will just briefly introduce the scope and the background of the project. And after that, I will use most of my brief presentation time to show you our latest exciting developments. You might already be familiar in some form with this slide. It gives you the coordinates of the project duration, length, from whom we receive data, and who our funder is. And it also lists the links to the various websites we currently engage with. In our initial project plan, we set our goal as creating a research platform on which images of Switzerland get linked. Selection parameters were that they depicted the space of Switzerland over the time between 1700 and 1950s in some form. The data that our project partners listed here shared with us contains information and digital images on prints, watercolors, sketches, photographs, postcards, etc. And so far we have linked nearly 30,000 objects. And last year was marked by project initiation and development. And this year, my colleagues have worked on means for connecting, displaying, and enriching information. Today, marked by the red dot here, we have arrived at the consolidation phase. We're now looking at customizing tools for data enrichment. Doing so, we want to ensure that the visualizations and outreach activities of part project 2 can draw upon the necessary data from the research platform of part project 1. Our ambition is threefold. Firstly, working in digital humanities, we want to use technology to create successful research tools. One aspect is shaping the linked data knowledge graph. More on this later. When building this, my colleagues make countless decisions on particular ways to filter, display, visualize, annotate information. Then, secondly, we want to explore existing data to expand our knowledge. On our own knowledge, but also the knowledge of the general public, which brings me to the third point. With the public outreach platform, we want to get people interested in historical Switzerland and how it has been depicted over time. We approach these tasks from two different domains of expertise within art history. Linked data as in part project 1 and Helvetica images in part project 2. Both sides, here on the left and right, conduct research and work to scientific standards. The exchange of our respective knowledge is crucial for building useful tools and usable linked data. SARI on the left builds the tools for data enrichment based on specifications from Helvetica expert Michael Mathil on the right. Vice versa, SARI provides the means for that the public platform can use data from the research platform in its visualizations. We expect this to happen via API. Now you can imagine an API as a window to the data of one platform inside another platform. By creating this superhighway of information, we ensure that the public portal can always access the latest knowledge added onto the research platform. Connecting the planned interactive map with the source of information on the research platform via API is important because neither portal is static. The more research users conduct with or through those tools and the platforms, the more both platforms evolve. A note on what content we work with. We started with database exports from our project partners. Breaking up the data collections into individual items made different types of information emerge. Concepts like places or people tend to repeat, while particular objects in those collections are, of course, unique. and any of these can be a starting point for research. On the slide, you can see quite a chaotic cluster of concepts. However, the language of the semantic web of linked data allows us to name each of these connections. And my wonderful colleagues, Florian Kirtley and Olya Nikolaeva, are great at bundling them into specific informational requests. They visualize the concepts in a user interface that hides irrelevant connections, but retains them beneath the surface for the computational processes. The main categories for us are, of course, places, people, and the objects. Observations about places and people happen on the level of the object. For example, we want to know where exactly a person was when they drew a landscape. Was this a well-traveled road? Or a peak in the mountain that the artist could only reach after a strenuous hike with all his materials on its back? Can we recognize patterns about this behavior across our data? We also want to know if the places people lived and worked at impacted what and how they created their pictures. I'm sure you can come up with many more research questions connecting the people and places and what is visible, what can be seen on the object. Now, SARI has to react to these research questions by coming up with processes that help answering them. In response to, where was the person when they drew the landscape? That process should assist art historians in the task of georeferencing artistic images. Here we found an answer in the tools offered by sMapshot at EPFL. Our second question was, did the place where a person lived, worked, or traveled influence what they created? Here we are still working on building input tools for collecting information on places within artists' biographies, for example. This is work in progress, and we will inform you about that at a later date. But in our collaboration with sMapshot, the BSO project sends a selection of images from the mapped collections to the sMapshot platform. sMapshot allows volunteers to align images with a virtual globe and thus geolocate them in 3 dimensions. The process for this is called monoplotting. Explained simply, you mark points on the image and the same points on a 3D map. The algorithm can then calculate the position of the viewer from a minimum of 6 points. Bilder der Schweiz is sMapshot's first project that includes drawn, not photographed images, as far as I know. And as expected, this challenges the system that had been developed for photographs. Images are not always corresponding fully to the calculated landscape. Therefore, we're very happy that our colleague Martin Bess and the entire team at sMapshot are supporting us in customizing some of the functions. Again, it's via an API that we are able to integrate data from sMapshot directly into our BSO platform. Now, in my personal opinion, the challenges caused by these artistic distortions of the landscape and images are what we are scientifically interested in. They open the knowledge for me. It's where we expand and refine what we know about the world. It is also where we get challenged to reflect on the methods that we use to gather evidence. It kind of teaches us to think in a different way. We can learn why an image looked a certain way or what happened at the time, and therefore understand the past. On the slide, you can see an example that illustrates that our project is not the first one interested in the artist's location. In fact, the location of the drawing seems to have been important enough for the artist to be noted in the title, Zwickelmatten. Also interesting, as you can gather from the image, the top half of the drawing appears according to the perspective from the place mentioned in the caption. But if you look at the lower half, the hills seem a bit random. They do not correspond with the perspective on the 3D map if you use the slider to slide in between. And this patchwork perspective makes me wonder and makes me construct the hypothesis if the artist has sketched only the top part of the mountain when sitting at Zwickelmatten. He might have returned to his studio and produced an image after his sketch. And in lack of a detailed drawn reference for the bottom part, he might have just filled in the lower half with a good dose of artistic liberty. These are just hypotheses, but you can see that individual cases like this have the potential to reveal a lot about the creative processes at the time. Then how do you deal with this? Again, the perspective is not wrong per se, but illustrated according to a cumulative semicircular viewpoint. From this example, we might learn more about how information on landscape was presented in different formats at different times. Now, this image of Lindau Island in Lake Constance presents another artistic example where the volunteers that take part in sMapshot and help us with their amazing work to georeference all the pictures, they struggle to place the image correctly in the 3D map. You can see in the background that the globe is tilted, whereas the foreground is approximately accurate. You can make out the shape of the island. From this discrepancy, I would dare to say that the goal of the image was to be informational. The viewer can still learn about the existence and approximate shape of Lindau Island, where everything is. Here, it does not matter that the site isn't rendered more photorealistic or whatever term. The contrary, a depiction more accurate perspective might even have hindered the viewer's understanding of the place, which has quite an extraordinary shape. Also, given that the image was created before a time of aerial photography, the metadata says in the 1720s, it is fairly uncertain that the artist ever actually was in the bird's eye view spot that the image is calculated to have been taken from. So why is that? I think I've shown you that the challenges are exciting opportunities for us. From them, we learn about the ways of seeing and getting information from images over time. They inspire us to form hypotheses about the image's purpose at the time of their creation. And finally, they also reveal how images might have been produced. Regarding preliminary findings, I just wanted to add a short comment on the concept that sits at the core of our project. This concept is the geographic and cultural entity of Switzerland. Like any concept, the definition and reality of what Switzerland means changed and keeps changing over time. The Switzerland that exists today on this 23rd November 2021 is not the same Switzerland that existed for any of the artists when they tried to grasp aspects of it in their depictions. By a random selection of images taken from the research platform that you can see on the slide here, the slide illustrates that Switzerland can stretch from religion to army, from means of transport to castles to forests and cattle. Not going into the various discussions that the concept can trigger, of course, I just wanted to reflect briefly on what I learned about the term within our collection so far. As expected, my view of Switzerland as part of the BSO project has transformed. We initially used the term to request data from you, our project partners. Your feedback during the data transfer process marked the first refining of the term. But for me, the collections came alive through comparative view on the images created as places and concepts on the research platform. I realized that what we understand as Helvetica and images of Switzerland quite often stretch beyond the borders of geographical Switzerland today. One reason is Switzerland's changing political and geographic form. Another factor that extends the Swiss sphere is the travel routes that connect the Alpine areas. And of course, we are far from the notion that Swiss images are the only ones created by Swiss citizens. On the contrary, Switzerland seems to have been popular with the people traveling to and through it. And with this, I would like to thank you very much for your attention and also your continued support. It's wonderful to work with your data and get these insights. And I will hand over to my colleagues.